Thank you for joining us today. I'm Marshall Shannon with Ministry Design Concepts. I'm a pre-construction navigator, and we're going to be talking today about preparing to build, structuring your building committee. In any church building project, you have 5 different phases. Preparation, which is where you select and structure your building committees and then bring together your industry professionals. And of course, planning is where you gather all the programming and work with the industry professionals to begin the design phase. And then, of course, once the design is finished, stamped, and permitted, you you build it. And of course, you have to take care of what you build. Today, structuring your building committee, it falls underneath preparation stage. We want to make certain you understand the importance of proper planning. And so we put this graph in front of you to show you that you're making decisions and have control of your project during the preparation and planning. But once you engage the industry professionals and you release them to begin their work, you begin to lose control of your decision making, and you've handed it over and told them what to do. And along with the loss of control is the increase in the spending of your money. So what is the point? You can't spend wisely unless you've planned well. So you better prepare and plan correctly so that you can use your resources, money being a large part of that, to maximize the effectiveness of your resources in your project. The development process, and there are questions that you need to answer. Here's what I see happen often. Pastors and church leaders, ministry leaders, would not think about starting a children's program to minister to their newborns through K-5 or their elementary age. They would not think of having their children's ministry and not having certain things in order. So they have a children's program, or a youth program, or a singles program, or a marriage program, or a senior adults program. On and on you go, that you have programs. You would not think of running those without having everything in order, structured. And yet when it comes to a building project and the process to get from where you are to where you want to be in your new facility, we often don't want to answer the set of questions that we need to answer. And so let's just go through. You're gonna develop and carry out for 3 to 5 years this building project, this building program, and there are questions that you need to have settled. You're wise to settle before you go and just pull the trigger and start the process. Philosophy. Why do you do what you do? It's asking and answering the why question. What beliefs and values guide your action? Your practice is motivated by and carried out from your real true core values. Does the new building fit into your ministry design? Philosophically, is this new building that you're dreaming of, that you believe you need to move your ministry forward, is it fitting into your overall ministry design? The purpose. What are you trying to accomplish? I know the overall purpose of our ministries is to honor God in all that we do, 1 Corinthians 10:31. But when it comes to the purpose of the mission of building this building, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your stated goals, objectives, intents, and aims? So you better have a clear purpose for the building project, for this building program. Talk about power. What decision-making authority is delegated to the people who are going to carry this out? Who has the authority to make decisions for the project? Who will assign duties and oversee each participant in your project? What about policies? Do you have the policy set up to provide framework for your people to function? What are the rules and regulations for carrying out the project? You have policies for your other programs. What about for your building program? Will you need to create additional ones for this project? Procedures. That's how you're going to carry this out. What and how will you do the project? How are people supposed to interact together? What are the steps? What are the job descriptions that are involved? What about priorities? Who will make the tough choices? I'll give you an example. You look at your ministry, 3 areas of your ministry as you did your feasibility studies are showing that they're all either out of room or close to 85% full, and you're wondering, because you only have X number of dollars, what ministry is going to get fully served, which one's going to get partially served, and which one is going to have to wait for another building phase, for another building. You've got to make some tough choices about the priorities in this building program. What will be your ministry priorities? Then there are parts to pull all this together. What will need attention during your project? How many subcommittees will be needed? Meaning that if you go to build and you're going to do worship, administration, education, recreation, and fellowship, 5 things in this one building, that's a lot of moving parts, and there's going to be a lot of people, percentage-wise, that could be, maybe should be, involved in your project. So, preparation is the next area. How much preparation time will be needed to train the people to do their part of it? You don't want to just hand it to them and let them guess what they're supposed to be. Equip them for it. Who will do the training? What about your overall plan? What does your game plan look like after you have created all the pieces? So you have this program, and I'm telling you to have an overall game plan that helps you understand how it's going to look. It's all got to be coordinated, organized, and orchestrated together. What about the participants? How will you evaluate potential people who will be involved in this? How will you recruit them, enlist them? How will you train or equip them, and how will you engage them? Put them into action. What will be the job description for each person? Part of your structure of your building committee is that you need to be able to show them what their job description is. Explain it, write it out. Give them the questions to answer, the research to do, the recommendations. Help them frame it up. What's their job description? What about the area of productivity of your project? What do you expect to accomplish in your building program? When do you expect to accomplish it? What quality are you looking for? A, B, C, D. I put it to churches this way: Chevrolet, Buick, Cadillac. What quality of building are you looking to do this time? See, in a building project, you get to pick 2 of the 3 following things. You can pick the price, the cost of the building, how much you're going to spend, but then the size and quality are dictated to you by the industry professionals as to what quality you can get and how big a building you can get for the money you're willing to spend. Or you can pick quality and size, and then the price is going to be dictated to you. So on and on you go. Understand that you've got to look at what quality. What about the projects that are a part of your program? What projects are a part of the whole process? What will be their focus? What about personnel? What type of people will you need? When will you need them in the process? Let me help you understand as we look at the structuring of this. You don't have to wear everybody out for 3 to 5 years because they're on board and no, you can activate them and deactivate them to do their part of the process and let them thoroughly enjoy it. So be careful of the principle of the point of diminishing returns, or they're excited about it at the front end, but it just drags on, or they become feeling like you're not accomplishing anything. So you need to answer the personnel question. Then about places, where will you meet? What is the breakdown of the total project budget? I've broken down total project budgets, your building program budget, into 7 areas to make them easy for us to understand and talk about. Because your budget for a total project can get very, very complex, complicated, detailed, and be pages when you break it all the way down. But to keep it simple, on a bird's eye view, if you're going to buy land, that's the 7th area. The first area is design, your architect, your engineers, your interior designer, your landscape designer, your audiovisual lighting engineer, designer, and so forth and so on. Then the second area is your site work. That's building out your parking, paving, curbing, gutter, recreation pavilions, RV areas, ball fields, sitting areas, gathering areas, detention ponds, landscaping, all these different things. Then the next area is your structure. That's the building proper. From the out, within 5 feet of that building in, underneath its roof and all, that's your structure. Then you've got fixtures, furnishings, and equipment, FF&E, and extras. Then you've got pre-construction. Pre-construction would deal with the fees for permitting to build, the cost of the interest on the loan while you're under construction if you're borrowing money. You may have some management costs and some other things that would fit inside of the pre-construction cost. The last area, the 6th area, and of course the 7th is land. The 6th area is that of contingency funds. Every project ought to reserve 3, 5, 10% or more, depending upon the complexity of your situation, for unplanned and unknown expenditures. If you can afford $1 million, I'm telling you that 3, 5, 10% of that million should be set aside just for contingency that you may need it, and you probably will need it. It keeps a margin there, reserves, to protect your projects. How much can you spend, and how much should you spend? So you're going to look at the price, the project. You did that for your children's ministry when you started it, how much you were going to budget, how much the personnel were going to cost, and the supplies, and the activities, and on and on. I'm just asking you to do the same thing in putting together your program so you can give people the information they need and the framework to make your building committee people successful. This is an important part of structuring your program, your building project. Planning. When will you meet? How long will each meeting last? How will you structure the agenda for each meeting? And who's going to be in charge of that? And how will it be set up? Performance. What standards will you set for measuring their performance? Who will oversee this? As you look at this, there are all kinds of questions. Don't leave it to just what I've shown you here. Add your own and build a program that will help you lead your people through the process so they can perform. Here's the point. You ought to get a lot more out of your building project, your building program, your building, than brick and mortar, than brick and stick, than rooms and lights and sound and carpet and furnishings. There ought to be the people being built up as they are equipped and carry out ministry. It ought to knit and weave the hearts and lives of your participants, of your personnel, of your church family together as they work toward fulfilling God's vision for your ministry, for your church. Don't rob yourself of understanding the eternal impact you can have spiritually in people's lives, both now and for the life after, by how you carry out this building program. This is not set aside as business, it's set aside as ministry for Christ, and you're partnering with Him. So here are some key summary questions. How will you design your teams? How will you develop your teams? How will you deploy your teams? How will you direct your teams? These are key building committee structure and project and program structure questions that you need to answer. And they differ a little bit for every church, and they differ sometimes greatly for every project, for building project and building programs. But you're going to have to design the people into teams and develop those teams, equip them. You're going to have to engage them into ministry, deploy them, and then you're going to have to manage them as they go through it. There's going to be struggles and challenges. And if the failure rate of churches wishing to build is around what I think it is around 70%, then folks, we better do a lot of preparation as the key ministry leaders in your church before you go and activate this building process. Here's a part of the process. Prepare and structure your building committees and your whole project to succeed. And I just don't see pastors doing that. They didn't teach us how to do this in undergrad and seminary. And this is ongoing education to help you be successful and to be a good steward of the resources that God has entrusted to you. Here is not the, but a chain of command or organizational structure that you can look at using. Now, in going through this, let me give it to you. The governing body of your church. This is done within the doctrinal and theological framework of your church. If you're in North America and one of our United States, your constitution and bylaws may lay out what parliamentary procedure you have to select, and it governs how you go through organizationally into a building project. The normal church is going to have a building committee. You might, before you have the building committee, have a long-range steering committee. You can call it anything you want to. But you're going to have 3, 5, 7, 9 people. I would prefer that you not have more than 9 on the building committee. Then you're going to have subcommittees. You can have one of the building committees as the chairperson of a subcommittee or of a couple subcommittees, because you might end up with a lot of subcommittees underneath your building committee who are going to carry out certain functions. And then you can have work groups or special teams or task force. You can call them whatever you want to. I've called them building committee, subcommittee, and work group for the purpose of this webinar. But you're going to have them broken down. So that's your organizational chart, or a way to do it. And so as we look at the committee structure, you're going to have the decision-making body is the building committee. They coordinate and orchestrate the process and the project. So they're the ones making the recommendations that are approved by the whole church, or the church gives them authority. The subcommittees are the recommendation-making committees, so they make them to the building committees. They assemble the research and development into recommendations for the building committee. So as you have authority as a building committee to make decisions in behalf of the church, and you're going to coordinate and orchestrate and collaborate the process and the project. Your subcommittees don't go off by themselves. They are going to make recommendations to the building committee. They're going to assemble research and development and make those recommendations. Then you have work groups who are underneath the subcommittees, and maybe one of your subcommittees is going to be the chairman of the work group. Doesn't have to be that way, but they're the research and resource team assigned to a different areas of the project. So you have one building committee, maybe 3 to 10 subcommittees, and then at least one work group for each subcommittee if it is needed. Now, let me give you a word of caution here as I say this, that you don't have to break it down like this. If you've got a small church and you're doing a small project, structure it so that it's appropriate for your group in your code and culture, your congregation, your context, your community, how you work together in your polity of your church and your organization. This is just some good, what I hope will be good, useful information to help you think through how you're going to structure your building program before you say go with all the players in the process. They're going to assemble information for subcommittees. So let me give you an example here. Let's say that you're going to do a fellowship hall where you're going to have meals, prepare meals, and serve meals. Maybe you're going to use it for children's programs. Maybe you're going to have drama and events down there, and you're going to feed people, and you're going to have a special speaker, special music, drama of some kind, and then you're going to have children's activities midweek or on Sundays there. Who knows? What all you're going to do in this fellowship hall, this meeting area. So let's break it down. The building committee develops a fellowship hall committee, subcommittee. That subcommittee is, maybe you've got one for the kitchen, for the food service. Then you've got one for the fellowship area, for the meals and the wait tables and the rectangle round tables, chairs, storage area. And then you've got a children's ministry that's going to use it during the week. And then you've got a stage that you're going to preach from, teach from, music from, drama, and special events that are going on there, and on you go. Well, you're breaking it down into the building committee who is doing this fellowship hall and subcommittees, and then you've got work groups. So let's just take, for a moment, and break down the kitchen. In the kitchen, you've got food preparation, you have food cleanup, you've got storage, you've got pantries, storage of, with cabinets of dishes and pots and pans and bowls and crock pots, and you've got counter space, you've got preparation areas, you've got cleanup areas with dishwashers and sinks. And then you've got refrigerators or walk-in refrigerators, walk-in freezers, or just freezers, depending upon what level of kitchen and food service you're going to have. Then you've got serving windows, and folks, we get into this, you've got to decide the complexity and the level. You're going to have a warming kitchen or a full commercial kitchen, and how complex is this going to be? At what level are you doing this? Well, you can have work groups that are just researching and working on the storage of the food, the storage of all your utensils and plates and cooking utensils and bowls and pans, and on you go. Then you've got a food service area that's got separate sinks and tables and countertops, and then you've got refrigerators and freezers, and you've got exhaust systems and cleanup systems and custodial areas for the kitchen, and you're breaking it down into work groups. Then you've got to filter all this information back to the subcommittees, where they take and coordinate it all back up to the committee, and they've got to coordinate and orchestrate all this information, and that's just the kitchen. If you find that you need to hire an industry professional to come in and help you think through all of this, we can help you with that, but you can find one. So as you look at the structure of your committee, you can involve a lot of people, not on one committee, but on subcommittees and work groups, and let them use their expertise and their time and their noggin, their minds, and let them work together where they are bought into this whole thing and invested themselves in it. What I'm saying to you is don't have just 3 to 5 people who are the building committee and no one else is involved in the church. Involve your people, equip them for the work of the ministry, and give them opportunity to be a part and participate and partner with Christ as you're working this out with the Lord. Now, here's a summary of the committee officers. Every committee is going to have a chairman who provides leadership, organization, training, delegation, management, communication. So your chairman, maybe you pick a chairman of a subcommittee and you let him go pull in and make recommendations to you as to who ought to be on that committee, because you've got to coordinate all this. The building committee does, as they form the subcommittees, who they're going to put in charge of it, who the vice chairman's going to be, and you've got to decide how you're going to get these different offices involved in this. And then they have to train and coordinate and work together as the chairman. Then you have a vice chairman. Well, let me say this to you. So often the vice chair just feels like he's doing nothing. Don't make it that way. Help the vice chairman understand if something happens to that chairman, or you're going to give him responsibilities and duties that he is assigned to. But if something happens to that chairman, they're indisposed or they're not completely out of the project, the vice chairman has been right involved with it. Somewhat like you'd see in a theater where there's a play going on and you've got an understudy to a key player in this play, in this drama, in this story you're doing, and they have to be ready to step up at a moment's notice if the key person is knocked out, or if you want to use a sports metaphor, that have you ever seen college football game where you've got a quarterback that gets hurt and then the backup quarterback comes in second string and he gets hurt and the third string comes in? You've got to prepare for the contingency that your chairman of the committee, the subcommittee, or a work task force is somehow indisposed or knocked out of serving, and that's why the vice chair is there to act in behalf of. And so they need to be sharp, they need to be equipped, they need to be prepared, they need to be kept up to speed as to what's happening. A secretary who's going to keep records, who's going to keep minutes. The records, by that I mean different documents and this, that, and the other, and then minutes of what's done. And hopefully you do this with any of your committees. A committee is a group from the whole who's doing the work of the whole to serve the whole church. So a small group of people working in behalf of the whole group. So instead of the whole church coming and being the building committee, you've narrowed that down to let them do it in behalf of the whole group. Notifications. Someone's got to communicate, hey, we had to cancel the meeting or change the room or add something to the agenda. They're given notifications. The treasurer is going to deal with the money, write the checks. And so as you have this, you will likely have most of those people will be involved into it. So the sample roles of the committee, the building committee, and you can add and detract from this. Publicity and promotion. Somebody has got to take charge of this, and the committee needs to talk about how it is publicized in the church and in the community. And they may be dealing with others in the church and in the community. And to promote what you're doing. You want to win it to the community. You want to win it to the congregation. You want to deal with the local building authorities and the industry professionals. They've got to take charge of publicity and promotion. Communication. One of the areas that leadership in our churches, ministry leaders, struggle with is communication. You ought to do it in a bunch of different ways, in a bunch of different times, in a bunch of different medias, in order to make certain that what you're doing gets out, and that's part of the publicity and the promotion. But communication between all the players in the subcommittees and the task force. Finance. You're going to have someone who deals with legal. So you've got to have your director of finance or your treasurer for your church, financial secretaries, on and on you go. Legal is you've got to have and understand the legal ramifications of this. Programming and projections. What ministry do you need? How many people are in each part of your ministry? What do you project the growth to be? So that you can tell how long the building is going to last and how long ministry space that you design is, how many people it would take care of and at your projected rate of growth. How long would that building go before it's 80 to 85% full and you know you've got to do something about it? So the bandwidth of your ministry space. Furnishings. Somebody better be thinking about furnishings, fixtures, and equipment with this. And you build a new auditorium, well, they got to sit on something. You got to preach from something. Your choir, if you have one, or your worship leaders, instruments and space. So furnishings, existing campus, and that's before we ever get into educational and fellowship halls and ball fields, but furnishings, existing campus, grounds and buildings, design, dealing with the architects, engineers of all the different stages that we've already mentioned some of them to you. Construction, you're dealing with the builder and the project manager or the foreman for that general contractor. Capital campaign, how are you going to do it, in-house or have a consultant? So these are just some of the roles of committees. Now let's talk about subcommittees. You may delegate to them parking, landscape, exterior lighting, and signage, worship, outreach, evangelism, education, day schools, weekend schools, music and drama, audiovisual lighting and acoustics, AVLA, gathering spaces, inside and out, lobbies and foyers, third places, fellowship halls, that they are people are getting together in your facilities. Recreational space, inside and out. Food service, back to the kitchen illustration. Preschool, students, singles, adults, men, women, senior adults. Administrative space. You may have for paid staff, full and part-time, and then some of your ministry that are volunteer people may have their own administrative space. Someone's got to think about all the ramifications of that. The building committee can delegate that to subcommittees who can also break it down into work groups like we talked about the kitchen. When Jethro approached Moses and said, you need to delegate the responsibility and the workload and it will bless everyone. I'm telling you to be receptive to the idea of structuring your building committees so that you delegate and find gifted, ready, willing, committed people of character to serve on your committees and teams, so that you utilize their abilities. Be a Jethro to yourself and delegate, give away ministry, but organize it, design it so that it's effective. So you maximize your effectiveness and your efficiency. Someone's got to look at storage. It's a key area that is left out. Maintenance, custodial, mechanical, infrastructure for information technology in our day and time, media, interior design, restrooms, nurseries, special activities, conferences, concerts, events, schools, weddings. I mean, on and on with special activities that are a day long, an hour long, a week long. They're carried on for quarterly or biannually or annually or through several years, but they're special activities that you're doing, funerals, community activities, that you've got to think through this, folks, so that you have considered the ramifications of what you're doing and how you're doing. Now, something that we haven't fully developed in this, and that I'm going to go develop for you, is a webinar on giving you some directions about the job descriptions of the building committee, the subcommittee, and the work groups. And also something we haven't talked about is how they are coordinated and related to your paid staff. In other words, your pastoral staff and your support staff, or your pastoral staff. And so as we look at the structure of your building committee, your subcommittees, and your work groups, you need to be able to put together a program for them and be ready to help them. And it needs to be tailored or customized to your particular situation, to your context. Again, I'm Marshall Shannon, your ministry coach and pre-construction navigator with ministrydesignconcepts.com and ministrydesigntraining.com. And you can reach me at marshall@ministrydesignconcepts.com. Our office number is listed here, 977-1632, and my cell number is 553-2070. Pastor, we want to help you prepare to lead your staff, your leaders, your elders, your deacons, others, to form the right structure and select the right people to help you safely navigate your way through, so you're not a part of that estimated 70% that fail at their building programs, but so that we reduce the failure rate down to 5 to 10% and help you partner successfully with God with what He is doing in your church and in your community, so that God could be honored and you can do people much good for eternity. Lord bless you as you move ahead with your building project.